Hello, hello, and welcome to the Golden City Podcast, the brand new college podcast based out of Iowa City, Iowa, home of the Iowa Hawkeyes. There's always exciting stuff going on in this town, but we're a little more interested in the people who inhabit it, their experiences, knowledge, their likes, their dislikes, and opinions. Everybody here has a story to tell, and I would like to hear it. So thank you for listening and joining Skylar and I on this journey. Let's get to it.
Buy other pods.
Well, yeah, I was gonna mention that. Like, they are not selling mint anymore. So there goes
All sales.
Wait, did you read anything about that? Why?
Well, I get like a newsletter every morning with like whatever news articles, obviously.
Yeah.
And one of the like headlines they put in but didn't actually write anything on was Juul to stop selling mint pods in the US. I'm like, no way. So I clicked on it being like, oh, I wonder when this is going to go into effect. And it's like, Juul will stop the sale of mint flavored Juul pods immediately in the US. And I was just like,
yeah, I saw that.
Damn, so like
that is the end of an era.
it was just sudden. I was just like, oh, all right.
Man, dude, there's gonna be like a black market for mint Juul pods.
For all you out there that want to make some money, just go buy every mint Juul pod pack you can, wait a couple months, and then just sell them for like $50 a pop.
Dude, I want to know why. Like, I'm trying to look it up right now. It says,
well, it's just to cut down on like teen vaping.
I know, but were they forced to? Does Juul really give a shit about teen vaping?
Juul would keep it. Well, they say they do, but like, dude, every U.S. regulator is looking into them to try to make them stop selling pods.
But just the U.S.?
Well, they're not really international yet. They tried, but they got put on hold. They're not an international company, really.
I want to see some more info on this. I'm on CNN Business, and there's a headline: Juul stops sale of popular mint flavor.
I don't think there's like...
But there's no info about it. Like,
what info are you looking for?
I want to know, like, why? Are they forced to, or was it just like a PR stunt? Here's New York Times.
I'm gonna guess they wouldn't have if they had a choice, or they didn't see it best for the company.
The troubled e-cigarette company moved in advance of an expected federal ban on most flavored e-cigarettes that have become popular with teenage vapors. So they're basically banning it in expectation of a federal law. Which is really stupid in my opinion.
That once they've banned all the other flavors, that in reality everyone just bought the mint anyway, and they're like, "Oh, that didn't do anything."
Dude, like, just based on principle, I can't understand that. How are you going to allow cigarette companies to still exist, but you're going to ban vaping, which has got to be safer? There's no way in hell
not saying it's healthy,
you can convince me that vaping is as dangerous as smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
And they also don't stink up your car and your apartment and your clothes. And I'm not saying they're safe, but I mean, come on. All those, here you go. All those articles about the new research coming out about people dying and stuff, those weren't even like standard vape pens or products. Like, those were THC, right? Those were synthetic THC. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So do you remember when there was that whole freak out where there was people that were dying with lung related causes
Recently?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And people were freaking out like, oh, it's the vaping. Like, here it is.
The THC stuff.
Yeah. It was people who were smoking
like fake THC stuff with bad. Because there's like some that have vitamin E in it now.
Yeah. So there was like, they were putting something in the batch that was, I don't know, was it like a thickener?
I don't know what it was
something
for, but like they've recently narrowed it down. They think it's vitamin E that is what's causing like
so there's too much. There's an abundance of vitamin E that's causing.
I really don't know enough about what vitamins are supposed
to.
But
they're not even like legally sold THC carts. They're like,
no, they're fake.
They're like fake ones off the street.
That's a big argument for why people want weed to be legal, not just so they can get high all the time, but because like all these kids and even like young adults who are wanting to get weed in illegal states, they're buying stuff off the streets that isn't safe or FDA approved. Whereas if it's legal, you can go to an actual dispensary and get real stuff.
That's regulated by federal statute. Yeah. I don't know. There's an argument to be made for that. Because you never really know what you're buying if it's off the street. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's bizarre that they're cracking down so hard on these vape companies. And I have a theory that is not backed up by anything other than my own hunch. But I know that the tobacco companies in America are huge, and they've been around for a long time. Like Marlboro or whoever owns them, like they're a big one. Yeah. They are huge, and they lobby Congress like hell. I mean, so does every big company.
Yeah,
but
give them money.
Who's to say that they're not lobbying Congress?
Yeah.
To get them to fight the e-cigarette revolution.
Isn't it Marlboro or whatever that? Don't they own like 40% of Juul now? A cigarette company owns a large stake in Juul.
Oh, I didn't know that.
As of in the last year, they bought them out.
I don't know. I just feel like
I'll look it up.
I feel like e-cigarettes have been putting tobacco out of business. They were already going out of business before because people are just quitting smoking. But now you have the e-cigarettes. They come around, and you have all these people who are chain smokers that are switching. It's got to be bad for business. So I'm kind of wondering, are they lobbying Congress to stop it?
Yeah. So here, how do you pronounce this? Altria buys 35% stake in Juul for $12.8 billion.
Yeah, they're trying to get in on that e-cigarette business.
No, that's exactly. And people were actually kind of like mad and saying they shouldn't be allowed to make this purchase because it fuels like an actual cigarette company. Like now you're helping with smoking, and that's what. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. I don't know. I don't get why they're going after Juul so hard though. It's not like you can't get vape products from somewhere else. Like you could still go buy a mod and use that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like if you ban Juuls that there's lots of other products out there.
Everyone who wants it that bad will find another way to get it.
Exactly. I don't know. You still have the Sorens and the Smocks or whatever.
Yeah, all the smaller companies that still have them that no one really buys. They're not that popular, so no one really cares.
But then you'll run into someone at a party or a pregame or something that's got one. You're like, oh, what the hell's that? Let me try that out. Like, man, I've never seen this. Yeah, I'm seeing ones that are disposable. Yeah, Megan, who was over here, who we recorded with. She had that disposable one that you hit it like 100 times and then throw it away.
Yeah, I had one of those once.
How was that?
It was pretty good. It was 6% instead of 5%, and it was like really smooth. Like I'd say everything about it was great. It's just that you couldn't see how much was left.
Oh.
So if like you went out for a night thinking that you had this thing for the whole night, and then you take 3 hits once you left, and it's gone. And you're just like,
interesting. And then that was what, like $6?
I think it was 7. Yeah.
Oh man, that's not bad.
It's not a bad deal.
I wonder if that's
why I wonder, like, how much.
Wonder if that's more cost efficient than a Juul.
Someone needs to do a study of how many hits you can take from your Juul, and then how many hits you can take from that thing. And
we should figure that out, and then
me and Dave will
let everybody know.
Yeah, we'll do a study sometime.
This is information you can't get anywhere else.
We could write a paper. I'll get my master's in that experiment.
That'll be your thesis.
We could compare like 50 different vape companies and see what one is the most cost efficient.
It's not even that bad of an idea.
Of nicotine.
Dude, it's such a big thing right now. I wouldn't even, like, if you had to write a big thesis for like a master's, I don't know. Don't you have to do that when you're in grad school?
Write
I'm gonna have big papers.
I'm gonna have to do that.
Dude, yeah. Conduct the research. I'll be your test dummy. We can look at see how fucked up my lungs are. Anyway, well, yeah. So. No more mint Juul pods. That's
nope.
That's sad. But
see the decline in Iowa City. See what happens.
They were hurting my wallet anyway, so
yeah,
maybe this is for the greater good.
It is. It is.
But anyway, also today is November 10th, which means Rick and Morty season 4. Which
there's only 3 seasons of Rick and Morty.
Yeah, Well,
Really?
they're scheduled to have like a bunch more seasons, but it takes them so long to make
I thought they
episodes.
had a bunch like South Park did, but no.
No, South Park is unique in that they can kick out episodes so much faster than any other cartoon. There's a really, really good documentary on YouTube about Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park, and it's called 6 Days to Air. So it's
They make
basically,
their episodes in 6 days.
yep, and it shows the whole process, and it's crazy.
I actually wondered that because like when their new episodes were coming out, like they'd like base it off stuff that was just happening.
Oh yeah, no,
Like-
that's why that's why South Park.
They put more Chinese stuff in it after they got banned in China. Like it was hilarious.
Oh, that episode was great.
Like that's what I like. I'm not like super into cartoon that type of show usually that much.
Yeah.
But like if I had to choose one, it'd be South Park just because they
stay relevant.
they stay 100% relevant.
Yeah.
It makes it so funny.
Because something big will happen, and then like when Trey and Matt and everybody else, they're in the whatever they call it, their writing room, where they come up with the ideas for the next episode. They just look at news and like stuff that's going on, and they find out how they can
the Impossible Burger on there.
Yeah, how they can
it's so
parodize
funny.
it and make it into satire.
Like this, what was the season finale with like no one cares if a white guy gets shot.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
just-
they have that reoccurring joke of that family called the Whites, and they're like, "Oh, nobody cares what happens to the Whites. No one cares if the Whites are being oppressed." They're like their last name is Whites.
so funny.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, new Rick and Morty season. Psyched about that.
At what, like 1:30 this morning?
Yeah,
As of recording time.
Yeah, like we were just talking about. It comes out at 11:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that means what? The middle of the night for us?
I think so. I think it's 1:30. I think it's 3 hours.
I think that's bullshit, but whatever. That's just something for me to do this week, I suppose. I'm gonna crank them out in like one day.
I've seen a lot of the other episodes just because you guys watch it and I'll be there, but I haven't actually watched them in order.
It's really clever. When someone first told me about Rick and Morty, I thought it was gonna be just another dumb, like Adult Swim or Comedy Central cartoon, but it's actually the humor's really clever, and the guy that writes it. There's two guys. There's Dan Harmon. I think he's the writer, and then Justin Roiland is the guy who voices Rick, and he voices Morty. So literally, he does the Rick voice and the Morty voice, and they sound like, I didn't even know that.
No, they sound different.
No, but he's so good. Go on YouTube and look at videos of Justin Roiland in the recording studio for Rick and Morty. It's hilarious. There was this one, I think it's in the Vindicators episode, if you know what I'm talking about. Rick gets more, he's drunk all the time, but like he gets more drunk than normal. And in order to record that part, they went and they got Justin drunk in the studio and had him record. So he was shit-faced in the recording studio. And there's a video of him just being a goofball.
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, it was. But, and then the other one I was going to mention, there's a clip from the Pickle Rick episode. You've watched that one with me, where it's like a bloopers video where he's recording this scene of him as Pickle Rick in the garage, right? And he's just like laying on this table as a pickle, and so they're showing him as he's recording it, and he keeps laughing at this line, and he can't keep it together because this line is so funny. And they went and edited, they animated the bloopers.
Oh,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it just keeps going. I don't know. It's funny. Check it out. But anyway, so, yep. Rick and Morty is out now. And also, lesser known show, but a big favorite of mine and Skylar's is Silicon Valley is out with their 5th season. It's been a couple years since they've put out anything, so I don't know.
Good stuff for all you nerds out there.
Yeah, if you like nerd humor, it's actually just, I like the humor. Even I don't know anything about tech, and I think it's hilarious. The guy that writes the show, his name is Mike Judge. Not a lot of people probably know who he is, but he's really well known in the world of comedy writing for television and movies. He got famous because he wrote that movie, The Office Space.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
I think it's from the 90s, maybe early 2000s. Comedy about I don't know, it's about this guy who
About the office
hates
space.
his job. Yeah. And, but anyway, and he got famous from that. And he's been involved in a lot of comedy movies that you probably wouldn't even know that he was a writer. It's kind of like one of those things where there's famous songs out there that were written by people you've never heard of, so, but anyway, great show. It's on HBO. So if you still kept your HBO account after Game of Thrones ended, highly recommend that. But yeah,
Other than that,
not a whole lot of local news.
no, nothing actually.
This is Iowa after all.
We ran out of news after we had our second of fame and Carson King.
Yeah. The Minnesota Gophers just smacked Penn State in a wild game.
I would much rather have
yesterday.
I'd much rather have Minnesota go to the playoffs than Penn State.
Yeah, same.
I was going to go for Penn State, and I was just like, I hate Penn State, but if they make it, I got to go for them.
My parents went to Minnesota, and they were ecstatic. I had never seen my dad so happy. So the Gophers are 9-0, and they beat Penn State,
and they're coming
who
to
beat
play,
us.
They're coming to play us next week.
Yes.
Yeah, baby.
The Gophers are going to beat the Hawkeyes next week. Like, you heard it here first. We don't have a shot in hell. So this is not a sports podcast.
At least
and
it's at Kinnick.
I don't follow Iowa sports that close, but, like, we have our work cut out for us.
I will say we got closer to Wisconsin than I expected. So.
I might be wearing Minnesota Gopher underwear for the game. It's just like low-key
It's
rooting for
because
them.
you're from Minnesota, you can do that.
I grew up a Gopher fan.
Yeah, that's the only reason that's allowed. It's like Jared going for the Badgers every now and then. He transferred from there. So it's like, all right, if you can go for them if they're doing well.
Well, the thing with Minnesota sports is that, like, I love all the Minnesota sports teams, but they disappoint you so much. And it's like they show flashes of greatness every once in a while, and then they just disappoint you in the end.
That's low key Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa's kind of like that, except like with Minnesota, it's every sport.
Yeah,
every sport. Like I remember when the Minnesota Wild made that big trade, and they got Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, and they had a solid roster, and everybody was like, "Oh, dude, we're Stanley Cup bound, we're playoff bound. Like this is our year." And then we made it to the playoffs and got beat by Chicago. And I was like, oh, okay, next year we get to the playoffs, get beat by Chicago. Like, fuck. Like, so I stopped caring about the Wild after they just continually shit on my hopes and dreams. And the Vikings do it all the time, too. When we got Mike Zimmer, everybody thought, oh, yeah, we're going to have a solid crew now. We got Kirk Cousins now.
You guys sound like Nebraska when they play football. Every year, everyone's like, oh, Nebraska, this is our year, college football playoffs. We got
they're irrelevant.
And then it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, 1-2 games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Oh, no. Sometimes Minnesota sports will sneak into the public eye, but they always botch it in the end. Like this year, the Minnesota Twins were like one of the best teams in the league in the MLB for almost the whole season. And I was like, man, like they got a World Series shot here, and they went and got waxed by the Yankees in the playoffs. I was like, well,
oh well,
back to the drawing board.
Oh, well.
But yeah, might be low-key rooting for the Gophers next week. So sorry if that upsets you.
Hope you lose.
All right, well, I suppose we'll wrap up and head into the episode. Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 6 of the Golden City Podcast. For this episode, I'm joined by seniors Dan Meade and Sam Pek. I'm really excited to get this conversation published. It's been a hot minute since Skylar and I have kicked out an episode, and, we're getting down to the end of the semester here, so life gets in the way, Anyway, hope you enjoy. This house is sort of divided into levels, and we're on the first floor. And there's 2 girls above us, and then there's 1 dude in like the freaking penthouse.
Is it 3? It's 3 separate units now?
I think so.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it's an old building, so there's a heating system that heats the whole place, but we can't control the thermostat, or so my landlord thinks.
Yeah.
There's a box right out there that's locked, and we kind of figured out how to
Unlock it.
Yeah. They set it so goddamn low. It's like it gets cold as shit.
Yeah, because I don't want to pay. I mean, do you guys
yeah.
pay for like energy then, or?
Yeah, we do. We don't pay for heating, but we do have that AC unit above the window, so we do pay for that, like, because it's electricity. But
Yeah, they probably don't want to pay a shit ton of money to keep
Right.
you guys warm. So
there's some sort of heating. They gave us some kind of like options as far as our utilities bill. I don't. Mitchell did all that stuff, so I couldn't tell you.
I got you.
So, how are things going over at the household?
Over at the battalion house.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going every day, dude. It's just like constant work, but it's nice living with those guys because whenever you have to like talking assignments through just our MS4 class or just talking about battalion stuff, it's easier just
Because everybody's right there.
Yeah, especially with like having Reek as like CSM right,
So he gets
across
all the
hall.
information.
Yeah, well, we're always in the same group chat, me, Sully, and Reek, but yeah, it'd be a hell of a lot worse if we all like were spread out.
Yeah, that's kind of how we are right now, except for those guys that live at 531 South Van Buren, the place where the Halloween party was at.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, except
Sam
for that.
was there.
Were you out
Yeah,
there?
that was a good party.
Oh,
I was there.
Yeah, I was there. I was Pablo Escobar.
Pablo.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember. I
Really
was.
old.
I don't know if you remember. I was Bon Jovi. I had the big wig
Oh,
on.
dude, yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I
Okay,
like
you guys
that.
went out for your costumes.
Yep.
That looked good.
That night went from like pretty chill to a goddamn shit show, like way too fast. It wasn't like I feel like with parties, there's this short amount of time between where it's like chill, boring, and then it's like really fun, and then it's like everybody's really
yeah, the really
drunk.
fun part is what you want, and just
Yeah.
keep extending that. And then there's like the rage mode at
Yeah,
the
that's
end.
like
that
As
the
soon
you
as
don't
Kickstart
want.
My Heart
show.
came on, it was just I knew it was game over.
And so that little middle part where it was like I'm just enjoying it, everybody's having fun, like that part was short. You should have seen. I had to walk Humphrey home, and this man jumped into a dumpster. And was like, "Oh, it smells like shit in here." Yeah.
Probably some shit in there. Yeah.
God, I broke my back window on accident. I wasn't even like drunk, really. Or I was, but it wasn't a drunken accident. If that makes sense. You were there. You
No, it
remember
doesn't
that.
make sense at all. I know I wasn't there.
Oh, I thought you were there. Well, I went to go walk Richard home, right? And because Humphrey was away. What was that?
Oh, just observation.
Yeah, I went to walk my friend Sam home, okay? Because Taylor was inebriated, okay? And I come back, and I told them that I was leaving to walk her home. They knew I was leaving. McClintock, too. And I left, and I came back, and the motherfucking back door was locked, and I see Humphrey passed out on my pull-out couch, face down. Like, are you guys serious? I started pounding on the door. Like, why would you lock it? You knew
Other
I was.
people have to get in there.
You knew I was coming back.
Oh, wait. Is
And
this?
so I pounded a little harder and bam, smashed the glass. Like I was like, what the fuck was?
Oh, dude, we've had our. I was gonna say, Meade. We had our. We used to live together, 220 River, over in an apartment, and we've had our fair share of accidents. Trust me.
Oh my god, this guy has the worst luck.
Dude, I do.
ever.
I have like I call it luck of the Hungarian because like I swear to God, it's about like every 3 years the shit just hits the fan in the worst way possible. Like I don't want to get into too much detail, but let's just say like okay, for example,
Tell him about that 1 year.
what 2016 or 20 this year?
Dude, both were shit
Okay,
shows.
so 2016, like we're seniors, right? So we all graduated high school. let's
So
see.
you guys went to high school together.
Oh no.
Nah,
we
we met
met
freshman
here
year.
actually. Yeah,
Oh.
we met.
I was gonna ask how you guys met.
No,
Yeah.
we met in Slater, but that's a different story for.
Oh, you were
different
at 12 Slater, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I wasn't
he
actually
was-
12th floor.
I was second floor.
Oh,
We
that's
just
right.
randomly stumbled into each other.
Really?
Yeah.
So you weren't on the ROTC floor.
No, he wasn't there yet.
I didn't join ROTC till sophomore year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I remember. Or let's see. It wasn't actually till like second semester till I really got to know Meade, but I remember like even first semester I met guys like Sully Carlson, like Callie Christensen, who's like not Army, she's like Air Force.
Right.
I met all those guys like first semester, very early on. Actually, Callie was like one of the first people I'd ever met here, and no, but when me and Meade met, it was like probably second semester sometime, and you didn't really know what was going on with your life, man. You're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, you were
Dude.
still pre-med, I think, right?
No, so at that time I switched from pre-med to acting, and I was fully convinced because like
Wait.
no, so
Yeah, I get that.
Hear me out. So I started taking an acting class, right, and I was like, oh, I might as well try it, and I got kind of into it, and I don't know, I did fairly well, and my teacher was like, you could act for the graduate like program here, and I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you're the only freshman I've ever said that to, and I start puffing my chest out, walking around like
Got raw talent.
I'm the big deal, right?
gotta-
I'm the next,
Hollywood, here I come.
Leonardo DiCaprio, just feeling it. So I'm like, all right. So then I was like, I'll take acting too. So I come back the next semester and I take acting too, and she's saying the same stuff. And then like her boyfriend comes in, who's like the head actor of Iowa or something.
Wait, this is your like TA or
No, this is my teacher, professor.
whatever, instructor?
I feel like
Yeah,
it's something
instructor.
smaller than a professor. but-
Yeah, graduate program, but I mean they weren't a TA, taught our own class, but it was and then he was, we had like monologues and such, and then I guess I did fairly well, and he's like I did that monologue way back in the day, and he's like, and you did it so good, and I was like, I don't know, so this is just like pumping my head up with all this gas that I don't need, because coming out of high school I had this fat head, right?
Yeah.
And then so I just like was fully into like I'm gonna
The acting scene.
be an acting major. I'm gonna go out to California and just wreck.
That's a great plan. What could go wrong?
So then I kind of like didn't know what I was doing in my life, and then I kind of like just woke up one day. I was like, this isn't actually attainable, and so I switched to a business major. So
You were in Tippy at one point?
So this is my third switch of a major. And then I actually realized I hated business, right? And I was like, what else could I possibly
What
do?
were you doing in business?
I didn't pick yet. I didn't pick my
So you were
major
just
yet.
taking like business core classes?
Yeah, but I was officially like a business major because my GPA was good
So
enough
you
for
were
something.
like what do they call that? Before I was declared for finance, my degree audit just said like Bachelor of Business Administration.
Yeah, that's probably what mine said.
So or
So-
Tippy Direct Admit or something. But so you took some business classes then?
Yeah, and I didn't like them at all.
Well,
And
did you
then-
take financial accounting?
No, didn't get that far.
Then you really wouldn't have liked business.
No, I bet I wouldn't. But so I took like micro and stuff like that, and that was just quick. I was like, I gotta find something else to do in my life, or I'm not gonna graduate on time. And then so I switched over to criminology because I've always been into that sort of field.
Yeah, it's an interesting field for sure.
And so I was like, yeah, I could turn this into like some like federal job. My
Yeah.
dad's an investigator for the state of Illinois, so I've always been intrigued. And my dad was in the military for 20 years, and I was trying like pretty hard to go to West Point out of high school, and then some shit happened with injuries and stuff, and then so it was like always in the back of my head. And then I kind of looked into ROTC and kind of figured out what it was. I always initially thought, like I guess most people do, is they think it's kind of like college Boy Scouts. That's the way
Yeah.
I like to think other people think about it.
It is a little bit like that.
But I don't know, I feel like once you commission, people understand what you're doing the whole time, but it's kind of hard
Yep.
to see why you're waking up every day
Well,
at 5 a.m.
It's weird because I had no idea what ROTC was like when I first got interested in the Army. So like just like you, and I feel like a lot of ROTC kids, I was interested in West Point too. So
Thank God I didn't.
yeah, dude, I've met so many West Point guys that are like, "You're doing it right, man. Like ROTC is the way to go. Fuck this shit." But no, I was interested in West Point, and as I was going through the process, I was like, okay, they are looking for like top-notch students here, and that is not me. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. But I was still interested in the Army, and that's kind of how I found myself looking at ROTC. And then I stumbled into the enlisted route. And then after doing that, there was a point where I was almost like, dude, fuck this ROTC shit. Because you know how like the Joes are, the enlisted crew, like they, you know, everybody hates officers.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of soured my opinion of being an officer. It seemed like really shitty just because of the amount of shit that gets talked about officers.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to stick with it, and it's been good. But
I sort of
for you, then you decided to look into ROTC
yeah
after you had switched to criminology.
yeah. So I always wanted to join the military, right? And so in high school, my main focus was West Point, and then like I was like, I'm gonna play football for him and all that jazz.
Yeah.
And then my junior year, long story short, I got hit after throwing this pass, and I completely like lacerated my liver. I
Like
was
in half.
Yeah, in half. I wasn't
How
wearing
does
rib
that happen?
so I wasn't wearing rib protectors that game, and I just
never
like
wore
rolled
rib
out
protectors. That's kind of scary.
through a screen. This dude comes around the corner and just totally like sends me into a different universe.
Were you playing wideout?
No, I was quarterback, so I was
Oh,
throwing
okay.
the ball, and he came right underneath my arm.
Gotcha.
I guess he just hit me real good, and then I go to the hospital, and they're running all these tests. They're like, we don't know what's wrong with you, doing X-rays, all that stuff, and then right before they send me home, they're like, let's just do a blood test, and they're like, oh, your blood's like messed up. You're bleeding out, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then
What,
so
like
then
internally?
oh yeah, so they do another test, and then they I find out like at like 1 a.m. They're like, oh, you fully like almost completely, it's like 99%, like completely lacerated your liver, and you're not getting up for that bed, so I hope you're comfy. And you gotta keep in mind, like you gotta keep in mind, so I played a full football game, right? This was the second to last play of the game, and so I'm starving, I'm hungry as shit. And they tell me, like, I was like, can I get some food or something? They're like, no. Like, if it processes, like, your liver won't understand what's going on.
Yeah, you're getting fluids, son.
And they're like, your liver will shut down completely and you'll die. So they're like, so they put me in ICU, right? And I was in ICU for about 5 days. And they gave me up to date every single day of if I could eat or drink or anything. So I couldn't even drink. I couldn't chew gum until like the 3rd day. And so every day, like the nurse would come in and tell me, like, oh, like.
So how did they feed you then? Did they stick you with an IV?
Just
or?
a bunch of tubes. I looked like hell, man. And then I remember it was like the 3rd or 4th day. Like the main doctor comes in, he looks at me. I didn't even know how close I was to dying, but he was like, he came in the room and he's like, yeah, so you pretty much almost died. He's like, you were like less.
Oh, did I?
He's like, you were like a millimeter away from cutting your vena cava or whatever. And he's like, if whatever that's called, and he's like, yeah, if that would have cut, you would have bled out in 30 minutes. And he's like, and you were pretty messed up. So I was like, dang. So I wasn't sure if I had to get a liver transplant or something, like until like that day came, and I had to like do all these machines, breathe into this tube, and try to like, it's crazy though. You can lose up to 70% of your liver, and that 30% will, regenerate into a full 100%. It's insane. So I guess that was kind of cool.
That's
learning
good
that.
for us, I guess.
But anyways, I make it out alive, and then decide to come back my senior year and play. I'm still on like dead set, like gonna go play for West Point, doing all that paperwork and stuff, and my dad was friends with, because he was deployed at the time. Back in 2004, my dad was deployed to Iraq. He was friends with Tammy Duckworth, who was at the time a senator of Illinois. I don't know if she still is. I'm not very up to date.
She was a senator?
She got shot down. She was a Black Hawk pilot as well.
Okay.
As my dad, she like lost both her legs.
She was a state senator or like a national senator?
Yeah, she's a state senator for Illinois, right?
I mean, like she was a senator in Washington D.C. or like for the state of Illinois.
Shit, I don't know my politics
know that
very
much
well. But
I'm gonna go ahead and assume that she was a real deal senator.
she was, something to do with Illinois though. And and so, but you know how you need that recommendation from a
so she was a national senator. Okay.
So she my dad was gonna contact her to get her to write something nice about me to go to West Point, and my GPA was really well. And then I got hurt again my senior year, tore ligament in my ankle after throwing an interception, and then I was just like, you know what, I'm not doing this football thing, and I was like, I'm not doing West Point either. I'm gonna go live college, and then I came here, didn't know what the hell I was doing, and actually before that I almost enlisted, and then my dad always said, he's like, if you're gonna go in the military, you're gonna be an officer.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get that from a lot of guys that have been in for a long time. They're like, dude, go the officer route, like, fuck the haters.
Well, I was gonna say, a lot of people who enlist to begin with end up, like, I don't know how all that works, but later in their career end up transferring to like going back to school, going through like some ROTC program or something like that. Some do that. Like, see, I was asking Meade about this actually the other day, like the difference between like officers and non-commissioned officers, which are essentially just like enlisted guys who are in charge of.
Yeah. So here's the way to think about it. A non-commissioned officer is someone who is the rank of sergeant or higher. So
was that like E5?
5? Yeah, so in the Army, it's the same. Well, so the other branches of the military, some of them an E4 is considered a non-commissioned officer. For the Army, it's 5. There's an exception, but it's complicated with the whole corporal rank. It's kind of like hard to explain to someone who's not in. But basically, your rank 1 through 4, so 1 and 2 being private, 3 private first class, 4 is specialist. Once you hit 5, so that rank, that you don't make sergeant automatically. There's certain steps you have to take to become a sergeant, and that's when you become a non-commissioned officer. And the reason why that's important is because there's certain like your responsibilities change, and the amount of scrutiny you're under kind of changes. Like there's
more responsibility. You're in charge of other people.
Yeah. Yep. So you the highest rank you can get to if you do not go the officer route would be sergeant major. So those are guys that have been in for like 30 years.
It's like E10 or some shit.
9.
Okay, close enough.
Close. I mean,
E30.
I think. Yeah. So like for the Navy, I want to say that an E4 is what they would call a petty officer 3rd class.
Shit, Sam, you should know this. He's going in the Navy.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention, I probably know more about like the military than say like your standard civilian would, but I don't know as much as you guys details, obviously. Right. But no, I don't know what is it, E4 is in the Navy.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the Navy. I know that Meade said that you're interested in being a SEAL.
Yeah, that's
so I was gonna ask you about that.
No, that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. And that's how actually, like, me and Meade really connected over that, honestly, like when I met him freshman year. So like basically I've always been like pretty good in the water, right? A lot from what I understand.
That was going to be my first question.
He's a state swimmer.
Well, okay, yeah.
He's too humble.
Can you swim?
Yes, I can swim like relatively well. I'm no Olympic swimmer here, but
good enough.
I was gonna say, I know that's not all that entails as well. Like obviously being a SEAL is a lot more than being able to swim fast.
It's a really important part though.
Oh yeah, no. Especially with like, so later in the career, what I would like to do, sort of like my general rule for like living my life all together, is just help as many people as I can. And I see that as a really good way to do that. Like overseas, especially, I think a lot of American foreign policy is like looked at in like a negative light. And I think me being one of the people over there, like carrying out what America needs to get done.
It's a way you can contribute as opposed to just being a mouth.
Exactly. Like I think, see, I don't want to get too political here or anything, but I feel like a lot of politicians, all they do is talk. Whereas like, I mean, that's literally their job though, right? Like it's just like them saying what we should go and do. Whereas there's people who are actually doing it. Something that I really don't agree with is things like the rules of engagement. Right now are just like atrocious for our like soldiers. Like honestly,
we've been fighting these wars with like 2 hands tied behind our back.
Exactly. Like it's scary when you think about like what you have to wait for the enemy to do for you to be able to do something to them. It's just like, it's so sad to look at something like that. But
so it's interesting when I was talking about a couple summers ago when I was in Wisconsin doing that shit in the field.
Sure.
So we were basically running this war game simulation, and essentially our scenario was that we were behind North Korean lines, and that my transportation company had set up this AO, this area in the woods, and we had to sort of build a dirt road through it so we could get our vehicles through.
Sure.
And then we had to establish a sort of a base around it from scratch, right? We had all our tents, and we had to dig foxholes. And I remember my company, we're reservists. There's a lot of guys that have active duty experience. Some of them have been deployed, but I mean, as far as what our mission was, is we were supposed to be fighting the North Koreans. Like, we had guys come and attack us that were like North Korean
like
soldiers.
simulated, of course, but
Right. Yeah, and I remember the leadership in my company just would, like, I wouldn't say they were arguing, but they were constantly trying to figure out what the hell are our rules of engagement.
like what we can do back
Because
then.
we got briefed on it on the beginning, but it was very vague. And so you have a lot of guys that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq that are used to the rules of engagement that you're talking about. But now we're fighting the North Koreans, who are technically not guerrilla fighters. They're a near peer force is what they call it. So they're
it's the military of an actual nation,
they're a
whereas
civilized
opposed to, like,
military.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, North Korea is not that civilized, but as far as like classifying their military goes,
Yeah, they work for a nation.
so we were constantly arguing, like, well, do we have to wait for them to shoot us first? Do we shoot them on sight? And it was like no one knew. And as someone, I was just a specialist at the time. I was pretty low on the totem pole. I'm like, what the hell? Like, do I shoot him if I see him or no? Yeah. So it's very complicated. But yeah,
And I
Especially
think,
when they won't follow the same rules of engagement. You
oh
will.
no, yeah, it's like
they take advantage of it.
oh
for
yeah, 100%. They know what I mean, like, I don't know any fucking terrorists, right? But like, I know that they know what we can and
sure.
can't do.
They do.
And they 100% take
they
and capitalize on it.
They understand that our media is huge and it has a huge influence on our country, and that if an American soldier shoots like a kid or a unarmed person, that it's going to be plastered all over the media. So like they know that, and so they kind of play psychological warfare like that.
Of course, they're gonna use. I mean, like, if you're playing with fucking the gloves off, then of course you're gonna use kids and women and children and like to take advantage of that. Like, that's a sick thing to do. Glad we got Al Baghdadi the other day, though.
Yeah, that was cool. I saw that.
yeah.
I loved all the memes about the dog.
U.S.
No, I liked.
My favorite part.
Yeah, you tell.
Is when the well, which one are you talking
I'm
about?
talking about the Trump video, the video he posted.
I'm talking about how
Well, I think I might have.
like, you know, Trump posted that video or that picture of
Of the
Photoshop
dog getting the Medal of Honor.
and the media is just like, this is not real.
Oh my God.
Like, them trying to act like
I
they
saw
debunked
that.
it.
I was like, dude, I saw that. It was like the headline news on Twitter. It was like New York Times reports that photo tweeted by Donald Trump is doctored. It's like it was faked. And I'm like, who in their right mind looked at that picture and thought it was real? You can see, like, it was a shitty Photoshop. I don't know.
Clickbait.
It was so dumb. But anyway.
No, Meade, I was talking about the video where he goes, where he's like, he died like a coward. Like,
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
do the voice, right? But like,
Yeah, he's like he died.
laughing,
Like,
or
he
not
was
laughing.
crying, screaming, and whimpering all the way.
It was such a funny
He's like, we ran him into a tunnel. Not a good place to be.
Yeah, no, he can burn in hell though.
I love how Trump's probably like trying to talk like he knows what happened.
Well, you watched the whole video live.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. I
They're all
I think
assume.
he was like cheering and shit.
Yeah.
Oh no,
yeah.
I was gonna
had
say,
to be. He was
Like,
going,
you went in the cave. Hell yeah, we got him.
didn't Baghdadi? What is he? He like clacked off a suicide vest, right? That's how he
Yeah.
died, right? We didn't
Yeah.
actually
Brought
okay.
And
3
so
kids
the dog
with him.
got like wounded,
Oh,
but
okay.
survived.
Yeah.
So good for that.
No, yeah.
They won't release. I think what's funny is that they won't release the name of the dog.
Oh, I thought his
Yeah,
name
like
was
someone's
Conan.
gonna go track down the dog's name. Like, I'm looking
thought
for
I
this.
I thought I saw someone calling it Conan, and I think it's a girl.
They might have released it since.
I don't know that
Yeah,
it's a
but right
girl
away.
for a fact, but I saw this meme that was like, some woman was saying like, how come they don't allow women in special forces? And this guy's like, what do you mean? They do allow women in special
And it's the
forces, and it's a
dog.
picture of the
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked up, but
Yeah.
anyway. So, back to what you were saying. So like, what's your plan then?
Okay.
as
So
far as the Navy goes.
So I've currently I'm a chem pre-med, right? And I'd like to go back to med school someday, but that'll be after my time in the Navy. I've talked to a recruiter, right? And a lot of
Wait, really quick.
what?
This guy doesn't have to serve. Both his parents are doctors. He's got like the highest grade of like organic chem here at the university. The guy missed one question all semester in orgo chem, which is like the hardest chem, right?
No, I'm really not a nerd though, dude. I'm actually
And this guy's
not.
putting
That's
off med school to just join the Navy and try
No,
to be a SEAL.
Well, like that's something. Back to that. That's something I've always wanted to do, and like my thought process is like I read a lot of literature on it, and gather as much information as I can. Right. I don't want to be some guy though who just sits behind a computer and like thinks I can go do this. Right. You actually have to put the work in. It's a lot of PT, and it's a lot of like you want to. Yeah, I almost thought about just doing ROTC and going with the Army, but I've thought about. I like the Navy more only because if I do go back to med school, they have a good med school. They can also, you can go somewhere where they'll pay like your full tuition, or I mean 4 years, right, of like your medical school. But back to the whole SEAL component of it, I read a lot on like, where was it going? Like.
You just read up on the differences between the SEALs and the Green Berets.
Well, no, it's not only that, but like the difference between going and becoming a SEAL versus like I don't know, because you can get you can like go through that path, right, as an enlisted or officer. This is where I was saying. So sorry, I gotta jog my memory here. So my thought process is that I'd rather go. I read a lot about it, and I'd rather go while I'm still younger and can endure
that makes sense.
Stuff like buds.
Yep.
And I think it's called SQT, SEAL qualification training. That's another like year and a half.
They have phases of training.
Yeah.
So for those of you that might not know, buds is basic underwater demolition. Skylar, I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, basic.
I do not.
So like. That would be the first phase of Navy SEAL training. So if you signed up to be a Navy SEAL right now, you'd go to basic underwater demolition, where they basically try to drown your ass.
Buds is actually So Buds is 3. From what I understand, Buds is 3 phases. The first phase is I don't remember what the actual name for it is, but it's basically kicking your ass until you don't want to be there.
Yep, it's a physical weed out.
Yeah,
Figure out who doesn't want to be there.
That's what it is. Second phase is dive phase, where you'll like be trained in elements such as like scuba, which actually we're scuba certified, so that's a little fun fact there. But
could you imagine getting through Bud's phase 1 though? And like going through all that hell week.
Oh, dude,
and
you get
you get to phase 2, and they drown your ass, and you're out. You just can't make it.
Well, dude, after Hell Week, I don't know if they still do this. You get like a brown shirt. So and obviously there's multiple, I guess classes going through. And you'll see the guys with their brown shirts on running past you on the beach. And they're all just fired up because they know they just got through like one of the most intensive parts of this like weed out portion of the course. But then second phase is dive phase, where you learn scuba and underwater tactics such as like demolition, I'm sure. And then the third phase is like your land warfare training, where you learn how to like
the ground tactics.
Shoot, move, and communicate.
Ranger
is a big
handbook stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Meade always calls a Ranger handbook the Holy Bible of the Army, because that's what it is, from what I hear. But
it's all. So the thing with the Ranger handbook is you would think it's kind of like advanced level stuff because it's got that word Ranger in it. It's actually it's just a condensed version of just standard infantry tactics. So if you are wondering how the United States Army and ground forces, how we conduct missions and how we just do all that stuff, like it's all there. It's public information. So, but yeah, anyway, continue.
Now, then after, from what I understand, after that land warfare portion, you get, again, I have a very basic understanding of all this, but you get sent to like your team, where you'll go through like SQT, which is like a further, from what I know about it, it's like a further qualification course. You like, if you're enlisted, you go through like a specialty course.
Right. So I don't know a lot about SEAL training, but it sounds very similar to what the Army does with the green Special Forces selection. You have like a 3-week selection period. They pick the people that they want.
Yeah, that's just the weed out, and then you go to like,
and then once you get in, they have the Q course,
Yeah.
which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's something similar like that. And then you'll obviously be taught in your specialty, whether it's like a comms or intelligence or medic type element. And then obviously you have your officers who will, I'm not 100% sure on this, but they'll go through some sort of course as well. I think all SEALs have to go through a SEER school.
Yep.
So like the
I'm
survival
sure they do.
evasion resistance course. That's another thing. Obviously, you have to get qualified to like parachute, skydive, all that fun stuff. But
Been there, done that.
yeah, Dave, have you been skydiving before?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been to airborne school.
Oh,
So
okay,
that
sure.
Airborne school is something that every branch's special forces will make you go to.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, he's been airborne. Yeah.
So yeah, we had some 18 X-ray guys. So basically, dudes that enlist in the Army, they go to infantry basic training, and then when they're done, they're basically going straight to special forces selection. So
Oh, sure.
if you were to enlist in the Navy and go to SEAL training, you would do something similar.
You plan on doing OCS, right?
Yeah. Oh, so I guess before even any of buds, I should clarify. Obviously, like you have your boot camp in the Navy if you're enlisted, and then you have like OCS, or if you went through like a Navy ROTC program at a university.
So your plan is to go through officer.
Yeah.
candidate school.
I'm going through. So what I'll do is go through OCS. But even before that, so I had like the LASIK surgery on my eyes, like so I'd be able to even like go into the military or
Okay.
special forces anyway.
Yeah.
But so the recruiter that I've been talking to actually said I can't like go to MEPS, which from what I understand is like a medical evaluation thing.
MEPS is the worst place in the world.
Yeah, but I won't be able to go.
Actually, I take it back. Second worst place in the world. The worst place is reception at basic training, but that's another matter.
No, so I won't even be able to go through MEPS until 6 months after my surgery. So I had my surgery in August, and then won't get to go till at least, what does that put me at? April, May, sometime then.
Well, you had your surgery last August?
No, or yeah, this past August. Was that 6 months? Or no, sorry, February. God, I can't do math.
Wait, so you'd be already fine. That's more than 6 months ago.
No, me. This February, I will be able to go to MEPS. Okay.
He'll be eligible.
No, I'll be
this coming
eligible. Yeah,
February.
yeah.
But
Something along the lines of you can't go within 6 months of like a surgery or something like that.
Well, we don't graduate till May. So
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'll still be at school anyway.
So would you technically be able to go to OCS then?
No, but even before that, I have to do like the OAR, which is like I don't remember what it's saying. It's like the ASVAB for the officer route.
Oh, yeah,
essentially. From my understanding, but I'll have to study for that sometime during second semester. I only have like,
Well, if you're only missing like 1 point in organic chemistry,
dude, no,
might
I
as
was
well
I was
just
about
not
to actually
study,
say
like-
I only have one or like one class. Like I have 3 semester hours required to graduate after this semester, so I might even just do part time, to be honest, and then like graduate. Or I was thinking of like retaking
part-time.
like part-time student, like yeah. No, but so I was actually thinking maybe I might just retake some classes I didn't do so hot in, and just get the GPA up. That's another thing the recruiters like, get your GPA up. But my thought process is like, man, if I'm gonna be a SEAL, I don't think they really give a shit about what my GPA is. But
Dude, GPA is everything, man. It's
You
all
think
about
so?
what doors are open for you.
well,
I mean,
like
in the ROTC world, at least, like
Well, it matters for So as far as ROTC goes, it's part of how they rack and stack people. So let's say, for example, like I'll use Caleb as an example. Caleb Kempema. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's in my grade. He's a junior. He was on the podcast once. So as sophomores, we got one slot to air assault school. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
that's like learning how to attack air bases, stuff like that. Something
So
like
what
that.
you'd have to ask him, but essentially what they do is my roommate Logan, he went to it too, but he went through the National Guard. This is for ROTC. So we had one slot, and he got it. Like, it's a privilege. This is like the type of thing where you get a badge on your uniform. You know, so you get that clout, right?
Yeah, sure.
And
It's all about clout.
yeah. So he got the slot because he was the top ranked cadet, and Major Hilsendagger, who was our instructor, basically told us, like, this is how I determined it. I basically took the weighted averages of all your GPA and your PT score and just stacked them on each other, and then that's how I figured it out. And he was the top because he had the best grades, and he's like a fitness stud, so he got to go. So grades matter.
I was gonna say somebody even like Pete Meade, like Pete's pretty high up there in the GPA and PT standards. I'm sure.
So initially, like, I mean, so Pete initially had the airborne slot. Then some medical stuff came up, so where he didn't, and so
Pete,
yeah,
Davis.
Oh no, Pete.
So like air assault slots. So air assault. I guess I'll finish what I was saying. Air assault school. They essentially teach you how to do things like rappel out of a helicopter. They spend a lot of time on what's called sling load operations. So basically rigging a some sort of load to a helicopter.
And then like taking it up or down.
Yeah,
okay.
It's kind of a complicated procedure.
Sure.
It's only 10 days long, so it's not too comprehensive, but it's been called the 10 hardest days in the Army before. I don't know if that's really true anymore.
You'd think Ranger School has got to be.
Well, obviously Ranger School's hard, but like air assault school, when it was only done at Fort Campbell, they really protected the badge hard, right?
Yeah.
There's this term called badge protectors, which means like they make the course hard on purpose just because they want the badge to mean something, you know, when you make it through. They've started doing air assault school at so many different bases, and they've sort of like for example, when Reek went, I don't think that he actually rappelled out of a helicopter just because there wasn't one available at the time. But it's not a requirement to graduate. So like the school, I feel as though it's been watered down a little bit, but that's another conversation. So as far as airborne school goes, though, airborne school is more rare. So it's only done at Fort Benning, and it's harder to go to as a cadet because there's a lot of people that need to go, right? There's a lot of people that want to go, but they get pushed to the back of the line behind the people who need to go. So like, let's say, for example, you enlist and you get stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Well, that's a giant airborne base. So if you
might as well get your airborne pass.
You have to.
Yeah.
They send you there, like it's mandated.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so all the people that get stationed at Fort Bragg, they have to go. All the people that enlist with 11 X-ray, 18 X-ray contracts. So basically you join with the commitment to go to Ranger assessment selection, which is to be in the 75th Ranger Regiment. And then you have your Special Forces guys. They all go. There's Air Force guys that go. There's Navy guys that have to go. So as a cadet, to get that slot,
it's like pretty prestigious.
It's very prestigious. And so the two guys in our program that went to go was Sullivan and Pete Grabo.
Okay.
They got the slots. Sully went, but the problem with Pete was he failed his physical, right? I don't know why. It's confidential
Just some health
information. Yeah. So they started asking other people. They went down the list, right? They asked Hoover if he wanted. You know Josh Hoover.
Yeah, of course.
They asked him if he wanted to go, and he was in the field at advanced camp without his phone. And by the time he came back, they were like, "Oh yeah, we already gave it away to someone else." And he was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Damn.
Yeah. So they went down the list, and then eventually they came to me, who was underneath Caleb, because he had already gone to air assault, right?
It's already like sort of prestigious, maybe not airborne, but
he had already gone at this point.
Sure.
And so they rolled it down to me. So like I sort of just got lucky. I was in the right place at the right time.
So you actually went to airborne then? Yeah,
yes.
Right. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier.
So I completed the school, but that doesn't take away from the point that like Pete and Sully originally got those slots because they're just academic. And
back to the whole issue of like GPA actually does matter.
Right.
Well, that's what happened. So
Because I remember you had that.
So yeah, so just to rehash that. So I was in the office at that time. I was talking to Sergeant McDaniel at the time, just grabbing some uniforms for advanced camp. And they were like, "Hey, when you get back from advanced camp," I told my dates, and they were like, "Oh, are you interested in airborne school?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I've always wanted to go to airborne school. Who wouldn't?" And so they gave me all the paperwork, scheduled physical with my doctor, scheduled the dentist appointment, because having a cavity you can't go, all that jazz.
Really?
Yeah, if you have a cavity you can't go to airborne school because I guess like at the altitude or some shit.
I couldn't tell you. I went to a family doctor to do my airborne physical, and I walked in there and I told him what it was for, and he goes, "Oh, sweet. You want to jump out of planes and stuff? Where do I need to sign?"
That was that.
Fuck.
Hell yeah. But so they essentially gave me the slot for like about 3 hours, and I was super hyped. And then I got that call a little bit later from Captain D, and he's like, "Hey, we decided not to just give it to someone who was in the office that day. We're gonna go down the OML, and
You just happened to be there, and that's why.
and so they're like, yeah, we're gonna go and use like GPA and all that jazz. And so then he's like, yeah, we're gonna give it to Boom, and I was like, okay, like
I got lucky. I was literally at work. I was working for this construction company, and I was kind of they did asbestos abatement. So I worked in the shop. I was a little bit of a delivery boy, and I was doing a drive from basically Minnesota all the way to like somewhere in Wisconsin. I was like, fuck this drive. Like I'd been driving for hours and hours and hours. I was getting paid pretty well. All of a sudden I get a call from Master Sergeant Janis. I had never talked to this man in my life at this point in time. He goes, "Hey, what's up? This is Master Sergeant Janis. I'm the new senior military instructor over at University of Iowa ROTC program, and I just wanted to ask you a quick question. I got an opportunity for you." And I was like, "Yeah, shoot." And he's like, "How'd you like to go to airborne school?" And could you say that one more time? Yes, I'll go. He's like, "Are you sure?" Yes. No, I don't even have any questions. Just where do I sign?
Where do I sign?
Yeah.
That's pretty dope, man.
But I guess like for anyone who's confused at why that would be a big deal, airborne school is very prestigious in the Army. The airborne in general, not just airborne school.
I was gonna say, Dan, wasn't your dad? Was he went to airborne school?
Yeah. So my dad, when he initially enlisted, he was in the 82nd Airborne, and then he went to college, and then then wanted to be a Black Hawk pilot. So then he ended up getting out as a CW3. But I mean,
so your dad was a chief.
Yeah,
that's pretty dope. Oh, I suppose because he was a pilot.
Yeah.
So,
which is pretty badass. I never really understood how cool it was. You know, my dad was a Black Hawk pilot.
Pilots
in
are
Iraq
very cool.
Until
that is a cool job to have.
Started getting into ROTC and started understanding what he did and was more appreciative. Because, I mean, when he went in 2004, I was like a first grader. And, there's not really much to comprehend other than your dad's away from the house. And so, I was in the principal's office every day that year. Like, there's a funny story my mom always tells. Like, she, walked me to the bus stop. And she, sees me get on the bus. And all of a sudden, the bus driver, stops the bus and screams "You better behave or I'm gonna call your dad this afternoon." And apparently first grade Dan thought it'd be a good idea to stand back up and go ahead, he's in Iraq. So my mom ends up getting on the phone with my dad later that night, and I remember my dad just being like, when I get home,
when I get home, 6 months from now, I'm going to whoop your ass.
Dude, and you know what? I didn't forget about it. And I remember the day he came back, I was so terrified. I was like, my dad's going to fucking bust out the belt and whoop my ass. And then,
he probably ran up to you and gave you a giant hug.
Oh, yeah. That was the last thing that was on his mind. But
you're like, whew, shit.
But what was funny, though, is we had this dog. We had this small little black lab named Maggie. And I don't know why, but that dog hated me and always just bit me, and I'd be bleeding, and it would attack me all the time. I don't know what I did. And my mom eventually got sick of it. And so when my dad was away, she gave it away to my bus driver. and never told my dad. So when my dad came back home, he was just like, "Where's Maggie? Where's Maggie?" My dad loved that dog, and then like that dog was long gone.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think that's a big thing that a lot of people don't really take into account about like soldiers being gone is like the effect it has on their families.
Oh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
not a lot of people really think about that much.
Deployment is tough.
Yeah.
And that's been like I think about that a lot, especially as someone who wants to go active duty.
Mm-hmm.
So since I want to go active duty, that essentially means that, you know, when I graduate in a year and a half, like I'm gone. I'm gonna get stationed somewhere, possibly deployed, you know. So that matters as far as like, you know, what happens if you're in a serious relationship at that time. Whoever you're with is basically like you're either coming with me or you're breaking up. You know, we're either getting married or it's over. And the idea of me being married in like a year and a half is just fucking
It
insane.
fucking blows my mind, dude.
Yeah. So that's tough.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a big thing is like marriage is a huge thing in itself too. Like a lot of marriages just end up in divorce anyway. I think like
Well, 50% of the marriages before the age of 25 end in divorce.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that makes sense though, because I feel like before the age of 25, you really haven't had enough
you're not
time to
developed. Yeah.
experience
Shit straight.
adulthood.
Dude,
So,
I've had so many people grades below me get married already from back home.
well, you're
Yeah,
from
it scares me, man.
So he grew up in Northwest Iowa, where everybody gets married.
There's nothing
young.
else to do except get married.
Yeah, dude, no, it's not even wrong at all.
Hey, where are you from?
Orange City.
Oh, Sac. You know where Sac City is?
Yeah, I drive by it to get here.
Yeah, that's me. That's my little dot on the map.
I drive by that town every time. I
Yeah.
know it.
No, it's a little.
Nah, dude, I had 2 weddings this past summer.
Wow.
I have 2 weddings next summer that I know of so far. Like all people the same age or within a year.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
that scares me.
I was listening to this scientist, I guess relationship scientist, whatever, and he was actually explaining it the other day. I can't remember what his name was, but he was saying how the reason like the divorce rate's so high is because people like being in relationships with someone, I guess, same as their like level in society. You might say. So, for example, like
Are you talking about Gad Sad?
I'm not sure.
Do you have like a thick, like sort of like Eastern European accent?
And he's got a
maybe?
big old white beard.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him talk before.
It might
He's
be him.
super interesting. So he was basically talking about how marriages fall apart because two people who, when they got married, were the same sort of social status.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, one of them gains status and the other one loses it. And then
And you want to be the same class.
they no
but-
longer see each other as equals.
For example, like say Becky is, head cheerleader on the,
Uh-huh.
the cheerleading squad or whatever. And Chad is the quarterback of the football team. And
Of course
so
he is.
they get together
Fucking Chad.
and, they're the same, I guess, level. And then, they're married. And then given, 6 or 7 years down the road, Becky ends up getting some successful business job and Chad's just working at
Becky becomes an accountant and Chad's like hopping from
milkman to
nothing
nothing wrong with milkman.
Yeah, they're not exactly bringing in the
rolling in the dough.
yeah.
But yes, that can cause some trouble.
Yeah, like 10 years down the road, you were high school sweethearts. You were both at the top of the social ladder. But then 10 years later, Becky's paying all the bills and
Fucking
Chad's
Becky.
just bumming on the couch at that point.
yeah, he's like a gym teacher and
Again, nothing wrong with gym teachers.
no, he's
Hey, gym teachers in my school made bank. We looked up all our teachers' salaries.
Really?
in high school. I mean, once you're there for
you
20
make a
years,
lot of benefits though. Like your health insurance is covered and you get like a pretty good pension. So I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it has more. I mean, like that's obviously true. Like people who are together probably want to be somewhat of the same class, right? But it all comes down to like what you do with your career. It should really bring you happiness as opposed to like wealth. Like they always say like money can't buy happiness, but it can sure help you afford it, right?
it could buy you a boat.
Yeah, it can buy you a boat, but
Well, I also think that I happen to think that when it comes to that question, right? I think that if you're doing something that makes you a lot of money, you're probably good at it. And I don't know, maybe it's not true for all people, but if I have fun when I'm good at something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy when I'm doing shit that I'm good at.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but so I think it's perfectly possible to do both, to love what you do and to make a lot of money doing it. And I think that should be the goal.
Oh yeah, you should want to make your passion work for you, you know?
Right.
Like you don't want to go to work every day. You want to go to your passion and then have that bring in enough money to where like you're satisfied with your level of wealth
Exactly.
as well.
I think a lot of people have it in their mind that they're like, well, I'm either going to do what I love or I'm going to do what's going to make me money and I'm going to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of mentality is not one that you should have.
Oh,
the
yeah.
goal is to do both, and you should be thinking about that all the time.
But it's hard. It's like hard to find that sometimes.
It is,
yeah,
for sure.
Like, it's a difficult thing to do is like find something you like and are good at, and those things usually coincide, right? And then also making that work for you, you know, like getting a job that's stable, and also pays enough to like keep you off the street, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. And it's not like you got to be rolling in dough, you know? It's like, It can still be like, I always say this too. I would be perfectly content where if my job was like something like building pipeline in a village in Africa to supply them with clean water, right? I would be perfectly happy with that as long as like no fucking warlords come and attack us. I have food and a place to sleep every day, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to fucking find though, right? It's not like there's a
You've
whole...
been looking?
No, but I'm just saying.
No, I
you know?
understand what you mean.
You know, but it's like like I said, I just want to help people, right? And that's something like I strive to go and look for and find, right, in my career and everything I do. But it's hard. It's like not everybody is always as willing to let you help, you know?
It is. It's much easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the key is you just have to constantly be exposing yourself to new things. Like I've talked about this with Skylar before. I get interested in things super easy, and I want to get into it, and I want to like try my hand at it. It could be anything. Like, for example, when I was, I think I was a senior in high school, I got super interested in day trading. I probably watched like a YouTube video about day trading. I was like, holy shit, like this guy's making money.
Yeah.
Like
Downloads Robinhood by
no, not even Robinhood, dude. I went full force. Like I got a TD Ameritrade account and I dumped like $1,000 of my army money into it. And I was like, all right, let's do this shit. I downloaded the fucking fancy Thinkorswim program that shows you like the live stock movements. Yeah. You're looking for the volatility in the market, and I like familiarized myself with all these stock terms and was watching all these videos. And then so the program had this sort of imaginary money, so like simulator, so that way you could practice buying stocks and using the program without blowing your own cash. And I quickly like realized that this was not for me when I blew my whole wad very quickly. Like whatever fake Monopoly money they gave me was gone super fast, and I was like, holy shit, I'm not putting my money into this fucking casino.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? There's worse things to put your army money into. That's for sure.
Yeah. What's up?
I'm just gonna give you a note.
Oh, but so
You ruined the point of the note now.
okay. So anyway, as I was saying, that was one thing that I like got interested in, and I like put all this effort into, and then just to realize like, okay, this is not for me. I'm really like not that passionate about stocks. And
No, but still, you even learned probably a little bit about like trading then, right? Like,
yeah. So I learned about that part of trading, right? The quick trades. It's called day trading because you sort of analyze the trends of the stock, the volatility, and the patterns in the graph of the stock going up and down. You're not really looking at the company itself. You don't really care. So I learned a lot about that particular type of trading. But, you know, I don't do anything. I still have that program, but I don't do any day trading anymore. I don't really bother with stocks. But I do lots of things like that where I become
You get super interested.
super interested. I try to learn about it. I try to get into it. I did it like I grew up. I played the piano because I was forced to.
Same.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah, I was forced to too, bro.
Wicked at the piano.
No, I'm not that good, but I was definitely forced as a child.
My grandmother was a music major and she taught piano. So my parents were like, "You're gonna take these free lessons, bitch." So like first grade Davis, I started playing piano and I played like all the way to like my sophomore year of high school. And but I tried, so that was always. Music was part of my life, but I tried my hand at like guitar. I thought guitar was a lot sexier than the piano. I thought it was cooler. I picked it up and like fucked with it for like, I don't know, a year maybe, and bought a guitar, took lessons. I have not bothered with the guitar since. But my point is like I'm exposing myself to like lots of different things until eventually one of them clicks.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things being this podcast, right? So I kind of looked at that question, what is it that I love to do and that I think that I'm good at? And that's talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
I like having conversations with people and learning about them and stuff. And so I kind of thought like, well, how could I do that? How could I capitalize on that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, we could try doing the podcast.
For sure. It's a good way. I think, I also think like balance is a big part of life, right? Like, so if you're so stuck in one, it's good that you expose yourself, because if you're so stuck in one way of thinking and not discovering new like avenues of like maybe hobbies or what you could potentially like make into a career or like whatever it may be, like I think it's good to have a good like circle, I guess, or like balance out that circle. You don't want to just focus on one thing only. Like, right, it's good to like do one thing that you're good at, right, as your main thing, I guess.
All right.
But then you also want to like balance that out with like smaller, maybe hobby type things, and maybe turn those into like, I don't know, cash flow on the side if like that you're looking to do that, or just like some sort of stress relief, whatever you may be doing. You know?
Yeah. You never know what hobby could turn into, could end up becoming monetary.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's kind of that mentality of specialization that's kind of dominated I don't know, the American economy for a long time.
For sure.
People sort of just prepare to do one thing their whole life, and that's just really not how it goes down. So I thought one thing that was super interesting that I learned from a trip that I went on with my business fraternity. Okay, I'm with a group called Delta Sigma Pi, and we do these professional trips. And I remember as a freshman, I was a pledge, and we went to Omaha, Nebraska. We went to a company called ConAgra, and then we went to TD Ameritrade. And we got to talk to a lot of the employees there, guys, and men and women who were in accounting, who were financial analysts, people in IT, people in human resource management, marketing, whatever. And the interesting thing was, I would ask, like, people would ask, like, well, what did you study in college? And almost in no cases did someone major in the job that they were working.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember one guy was in IT, and he was like, I was like, well, what'd you major in? He was like, well, I got my first major in music, and then I got a job as like a Intel analyst for some small company, and then from there I moved into marketing, and then from there I got familiar with their computer system, and then now I'm here doing IT. It's like this dude studied music for 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, I don't know, it kind of makes you think. Like,
I can't remember who I was listening to, but there's some like, I don't know, like business motivational guy, and is like, who's supposed to specialize? Insects are specialists.
I feel like
I probably
before.
Yeah, and it's like when you really think about it, that's kind of like how a fucking like colony of ants works, right? You got like your worker ants, and then like, I don't know, your builders or whatever else, and like,
hey, was that from Naval Ravikant?
I don't know the name, but like
he's the Indian guy who's the angel investor out in Silicon Valley. I know that guy's great. I like him. I
just like scrolled through something on like Instagram probably, but
I remember. Yeah, he said something like specialization is for insects.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I thought of that.
No, so. Yeah, it's 100% true though. Like, I don't think I don't think people are meant to specialize, like realistically, you know, like you should have maybe like 1 or 2 avenues of like, you really like to do these things, make them work for you. And then you can like explore hobbies and like expand your, I don't know, circle, I guess I like to think of it as, of like what you're involved with, you know? But
Well, I mean, the age if we did decide to specialize in something, is such a young age.
oh yeah,
we don't even
dude.
know what we like yet.
They're asking kids out of high school. You're 18, you know, like, and what do you want to go major in? This is what your career is gonna be. Like, just, people don't fucking know, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's why they tell you, like, you know, major in something that you're interested in. I remember them telling me this when I went through the admissions process at Iowa. You know, pick a major that you're interested in. You know that Success at Iowa course?
Yeah.
I think it was during that. And I just thought, like, you know, 18-year-old kids coming out of high school, how can you tell them that when they haven't experienced enough life to know what the fuck they're interested in?
I was pretty fortunate. We had like a program at our high school called School to Careers. I don't know if you guys had anything similar. Basically, it was like you would go to a place you're interested in working at. Right, you would go to like, if you wanted to be like a doctor or nurse, you'd go like shadow at the hospital. You'd do rotations around like these different units. Most of the kids sort of abuse that like program and were just like, oh, I want to be a farmer. So, and then they would just go home, dick around all day and like skip school essentially. But I like really tried to capitalize on that program. I think things like that are a lot more, I don't know, implementable into like the vast majority of high school programs where like kids could go explore like a career, follow somebody around all day or not all day, I guess it's only a couple periods out of the day, really see what like they perceive this career to be and then like see if they like it or not, you know?
For sure. My dad has a cousin who used to be a commodities trader on the Chicago Stock Exchange. He was a big shot. He was on like some board and big finance dude. And one of the best pieces of advice he gave me was as far as internships go, if you get the opportunity to do an internship, even if it's just a job that's not even related to your major, right? He goes, don't worry about so much if it's going to be a good or bad experience. Just do it. And like, if it's a good experience, then you learned that you're interested in that thing. If it's a bad experience, good. Like
you learned what you don't want to do.
Exactly. And you may have saved yourself a whole lot of time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Anyway. Well, Skylar, how are we on time?
We are like an hour in, and I have about like 25 minutes left of battery life in my computer because I forgot my charger. So that is our time limit.
Skylar, but you said you're from Orange City?
Yeah, Orange City, Iowa, way northwest.
Yeah.
Small town.
How far is that from like Sioux City?
Like 50 minutes.
Oh, okay. You're a little closer than me. I was gonna say that's why I had to drive over there for all the eye surgeries. I actually broke my leg in high school too. Sioux City's the place you go if you need
I broke my leg in grade school and I went there.
Yeah. Great surgeons over there. I don't know. You know Dr. Meyer?
Oh, that sounds really familiar, dude.
Yeah, he's got the
dude,
big leg guy.
No. It's kind of
that
weird.
Might be my doctor.
No, yeah, that's who I went and saw. I broke my fibula, messed it up real bad. But
see, you know what I think is crazy about rural America? See, I'm from Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's new. That's new to me, right? I've been up there. We went up to his cabin, which is on what? Silver Lake, right by Okoboji.
Sure, yeah.
And we get up there, and like, there's not much out there. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Like, you drive a lot in between towns, and the towns themselves are not big at all. But everybody knows each other, even though you're miles and miles.
Dude, it's
and
such a
miles
small
apart.
world.
When
It's
we
such a small
Everybody
world.
knows each other, dude. I didn't know my own goddamn neighbors like a couple houses down.
Yeah.
No, dude. When we
In the
first,
Twin
when
Cities.
my parents first got the house, then my dad's like looking for a place to store the trailer. He's like, "Oh, I actually heard this. Whatever, so and so lives at that house over there." And we just drove over there, and they're like mowing their lawn. Dad just rolls up. Hey, what's going on? I'm Gary. Like,
Oh yeah,
Dude, yeah, everybody knows each other. Like,
everyone has a connection to
which
everyone.
I think is super cool because everybody helps each other out.
oh yeah.
There's like this system where
Dude, it's like an unspoken system of like, if you know this like that's mostly, to be honest, how I've gotten my jobs throughout high school.
Really?
Like people would just be like, oh, my dad or you know my son, like, oh,
Jim.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, come work for me. Like, I don't know, that it's really good to have that like ability, I guess, to like form connections like through people and then just like capitalize on those opportunities, like,
Yeah, sometimes they say you can get more out of life with the people you know rather than the things you know.
oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
so
It's
true.
not, it's not
Yeah.
what you know to.
Exactly. That is very true. So I mentioned I worked for this construction company, and it was in a town called Hastings in Minnesota, which is not. It's not a small town per se, but it's not.
They have,
it's not a suburb.
Is that Morningside? No.
It's on the. It's like right on the border of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know it. We it's one of the schools like our smaller NAIA division plays against.
Oh, gotcha. Yep, the Hastings Raiders. Yep, it's kind of like it's a neat little town. My cousins grew up there, and they think it's a hick town. But it's funny, this town, like, there's a guy for everything. Like, when someone says, "Oh, I know a guy," there's a guy for everything.
That phrase is used more than
Yes.
anywhere else in
And
America.
it was funny, like we needed like someone to fix our garage door. And my uncle who lives out there is like, "Yeah, I know a guy." And all these guys that fix these random machinery or whatever, they all have some nickname.
Oh yeah.
Like Frosty was
Yeah.
the fucking garage door
Yeah.
guy, and the AC guy was like Stokey.
Sounds like
Or
a
some
yeah,
television
show.
Tuggy, Frenchie. We got a lot of those.
Yeah.
we got a lot of those guys.
There's a guy with a nickname. That's the recipe for small town America.
Oh yeah.
I just think that's funny.
I think it's a good place to grow up though, because I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good place to raise a family. Not some place like maybe you want to start a career or anything. Like, to be honest, not a whole lot of job opportunities in Sac City for, I don't know, like doctors, lawyers, stuff like that. Really high ranking, like professional, what society I guess would consider like a professional. But like, it's definitely a peaceful place where like you get a lot of good values growing up. You learn hard work. You like go work for a farmer for a couple summers.
Yeah, you know,
learn how to work hard. And
I remember I worked over a summer doing stuff like that when I was in high school, and that was my first real taste of like manual labor. Of when that was the first real job I had where like it was a grind every day. But
6 a.m. to 5 p.m. and
yeah, and it's like, when I was a sophomore, I worked at this comfortable little hockey shop, and I worked in the summertime, which there's not a lot of people buying hockey equipment in the summertime.
Sure.
So, me and this girl that I made friends with, we just messed around a lot, who I ended up dating. So you can see how that went, but wasn't real serious, And then I went from that to like I could pick my own hours. They let me go for lunch.
it's
And
really
then,
casual.
and then I go to the sort of construction world where no one really gives a shit about your comfort. And so
get to work. Yeah.
it's the same thing in the Army too. Like that was a real wake up call when I was like, no one here gives a flying fuck how comfortable you are. Like they don't care if you're happy. They don't care if you're
just
having
get
a
it
good
done.
time. You just gotta suck it up.
Yeah.
But that's good for you, I think.
No, it's
it
a good
builds
value to
character.
instill for sure. I think a lot of people end up becoming, I mean, like none of their like failure is really reinforced with anything bad. Like I feel like a lot of kids are bailed out by say like their parents or their friends.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like if you really learn what it means to suffer, I know this sounds kind of fucking dark or whatever, but like if you really know what true
totally
like
with you.
suffering is, then it just unlocks so much more for you, like in terms of like your mental like capability. I don't know.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So this past summer I was in Guatemala, and I remember when I was there, someone was talking about the style of parenting in Latin America is a little bit different than in the United States, where the U.S. parents today are so worried about their kids' safety.
Yeah.
Right? They're so like helicopter parents.
I can attest
And
to that.
they just will not allow their kids to just fuck up because they're so worried they're going to get hurt or whatever. Their chances of whatever are going to be ruined. They're going to screw themselves. Whereas in Latin America, and these kids that I got to talk to in Guatemala, their parents' attitude is more like, no, go ahead, see what happens. Like, you know, go touch that electric fence, see what happens.
Find out the hard way.
Yeah, and they do that with everything, and I kind of like that. I think that's I think that's a faster way to teach people really important lessons.
I think it was my dad always had a saying: if you're smart, you'll learn from your mistakes, but if you're a genius, you'll learn from others' mistakes.
Yeah.
So like I always like had a pretty good idea on like what I was supposed to and not supposed to do growing up, but I think a lot of kids are kind of a
Genius.
No, I'm not saying no. I'm no fucking genius here, man. But like, all I'm saying is I just think people really need to experience what it's like to fail, and like, it sucks, man. But then you got to pick yourself back up and say, okay, well, one foot in front of the other. Like, you either that or you give up and you just, I don't know, become like a fucking bum, and nobody wants that, you know.
That's really important because some people don't know how to fail. They've never experienced failure. So when it does happen to them, at some point in time, life is going to put you on your ass, and you're not going to know how to deal with it. You're going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
I just got my world rocked.
Something didn't go my way for once. And, yeah. So, I don't know.
I don't know where
Sounds like you just got your world rocked.
I didn't really have a follow-up thought. I was
Sometimes people get their shit checked, so yeah.
yeah, so I guess the moral of the story is don't be afraid of failure.
Or just don't get your shit checked.
Yeah.
Meade, what would you say is the hardest thing you've done in the Army so far?
I haven't done shit. I mean, as a cadet, you really don't get put through, I mean, really anything, you know, everything's pretty safety oriented. But I guess if I had to choose something, I would say advanced camp. But I mean, I don't want to be that guy saying, oh, advanced camp was the hardest thing I've ever been through. No, it's just like, but I mean, being under the scope for a consecutive month and being graded amongst your peers in your platoon
takes a lot out of you.
Dude, you just have to be on your shit. And I tell you what, I've never been so focused for such a long period of time. And when we left after graduation, I could finally just like relax and not feel like everything I was doing, like even like just sitting and eating properly.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably worse for you because I felt a lot of that at basic training. But the difference between basic and advanced camp is that at basic training, you're just trying to graduate. You know, you just follow the rules and you just fall in line and do what you need to do and you graduate. Whereas advanced camp is like you're under the goddamn microscope. You're being evaluated. You're doing more advanced stuff than you would at basic training.
No, but I'd expect something like somebody who's been through like boot camp will have an easier go at like advanced camp, say, than somebody who's just goes through ROTC, never goes to something like boot camp.
It depends.
Well, there's some people that just lose their minds.
Right.
Like as soon as we hit the field, like because everybody's sizing each other up. Like, oh, okay, like this is where I probably am in the platoon rankings right now, right?
Yeah.
Throughout camp, and the farthest you'll get is helping out your boys. As soon as you start being that blue falcon, then you start screwing yourself over. You know, your own ranking will reflect that. But where was
Blue
it going
Falcon
with
means
that?
Buddy fucker, if you didn't know what that means.
Yeah, and those guys really didn't rank well, but no, as you're sizing people up, and it's weird and interesting to see once you get to the field and you see people's real sides start coming out when you haven't showered for a few weeks.
Oh yeah,
and you've been sleeping in shit.
Everybody starts copping an attitude with each other.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I live for that shit.
It's fun. It's fun to watch
hilarious.
go down, especially if you can maintain your composure.
No, yeah. Maintaining composure, I feel like, is a huge part of that.
There was one girl I remember. She was very vocal leader, very confident, right? And I was like, this, I bet she's a force to be reckoned with. I think she's gonna perform really well, and I bet she gets like top 5 in the end. So in the beginning you're gonna want to stay around those people, right? Birds of a feather. But as soon as we hit the field, she kind of lost her mind and got in those leadership roles, and
Oh yeah,
and she kind of shit the bed. I mean, even for her biggest evaluation,
Call that a Garrison hero.
Oh yeah, when she hit PSG in the field, she took a nap during the planning phase. Yeah, so it was just all hell to begin with. So she didn't do very well, and like you hang around shit long enough, you start to smell like it. So I quickly was done talking and
Switched up friends
affiliating.
groups.
Yeah, but you'll find out the guys that help you out the most that are there are the green to gold guys who are active duty, trying to do the officer route through ROTC. So I hung around this one guy who was, I think he was like 8 years enlisted, and he was an actual like PSG, his own unit, been to Afghanistan, and you'll learn a lot from those guys.
That's cool. Yeah, but to answer your question, so yes, having that prior enlisted experience can be a huge tool. For some. I wouldn't say it's required because there are a lot of cadets out there that don't have that background that still do really well, like Meade and like Sullivan, Grabo, Hoover. None of those guys went to basic training, but they're all studs, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And there's more, right? But for me personally, I think it helped square me away a lot, right? I feel a lot more confident as a leader and as a soldier because I had that background experience. However, not everybody that goes through basic training comes out just like really squared away. There's a lot of enlisted guys that end up in ROTC that think that because they're enlisted that they're the shit and they know everything, and that they fucking like, oh, I'm in the National Guard, like this is bullshit, like like those guys are really gonna screw themselves. And
I think anytime you go into any new program, you should always have the mentality of like no expectations. I'm gonna put in as hard as I would have, is as if like I was in quotes a new guy here, you know, like
because ROTC is a different world.
Oh yeah,
and it's not the same. There's similarities, but it's not the same. So, yeah. So those guys that come in thinking that they know everything, right? But I don't know. Being enlisted is no guarantee of competency. So.
I was gonna say, hot shit doesn't fly; it only burns. You know, like when guys come in thinking they're all on top of the world, man, like ends up biting them in the ass in the end. But
yeah,
so.
You just can't expect anything handed to you from what you've done previously. I mean, you go to a new place, I guess you kind of have to re-earn that respect.
For sure. But anyway, so you said you want to be an engineer. That's your plan.
I find out next Friday night. We got our branch.
Oh yeah, branch day is coming up. That's right.
Yeah, it's coming up next Friday, and essentially, so for people who don't know, in ROTC your senior year, you end up finding out which branch you get. Which in the Army, there's what, like 16, 17 branches.
Yeah. So as far as officers go, we don't have individual jobs, right? So like when I joined the reserves, I was an 88 mic motor transport operator. That's a specific job that's within the transportation corps, where it's a fancy way of saying truck driver, right?
Sure.
Motor transport operator.
88 mic.
Yeah.
Or just
You got jokes. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. Anyway, whereas as an officer, you take a branch. So instead of being a truck driver, you'd be a transportation officer,
which is in charge of like a bunch of guys who are
all the
drivers,
the transportation jobs. Yeah. So his top pick is the Corps of Engineers. He wants to be an engineering officer.
So in charge of other engineers who may be like building stuff, maintaining stuff, you know,
demolition, all that shit.
Yeah, horizontal, vertical, all that jazz. So that's my number one choice, and you essentially get assessed. As we were saying earlier, GPA is a big factor. For my year, it changes every year. For my year, it's 31% of your overall grade. Camp is another, like 15%. Your PT score, all that jazz. How involved you are during college. So it all gets put, and you can get a total of 100 points, right? Which is unheard of. You can't be the best at everything, and obviously, like certain majors get more points. So for example, if you're like a STEM major, you get a few more extra points, and
yeah, they try to compensate for the more difficult majors.
Yeah, people who have like more strenuous.
Because some people that want to make the Army a career, they'll just pick some easy ass major.
Oh yeah, there's a guy Camp he was theater major.
Yeah.
And he got like DMG, and just because he killed his GPA. Not a bad guy though. He definitely knew his shit too. But anyways, as I was saying, so you get ranked one in like say 7,000 cadets in the nation. Wipe out half of those cadets because of them going guard or reserve, so competing for active duty. You got your jobs, which is your branches, and then we find that out next Friday. And it's not always 100% what you're gonna get. Sometimes if you don't have a high enough score, only it's the top 10% are actually guaranteed their number one pick.
Really?
Only top 10%.
Yeah.
After that, it's just kind of
whatever the Army needs.
Whatever's left.
Army needs, and if you don't like it, well, you already signed the contract.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people put a lot of worry into their branch. A lot of cadets do. And I don't know. I don't think it's as big of a deal because as an officer, you're not actually doing your hands-on job as much. So you might be an engineer officer and you'll train on engineering stuff, but at the end of the day,
it's really not that maybe different from like a transport officer. You're still in charge.
Pretty much a manager.
Precisely. Yeah, you got it. So
I got you.
Whereas for you, so if you go to officer candidate school and you go to the SEAL teams, like your function's going to be totally different. Like you're going to be a leader of a SEAL ODA. I don't know what they call it, but in the Army world, Special Forces calls it an Operational Detachment Alpha. And the officer of that group, right, is going to be the leader of the group, essentially. So you'll be doing the Special Forces community is very disconnected from the rest of the military.
From the regular big army.
They kind of follow different rules.
Yeah.
That's why they're unconventional warfare, right? So,
but we definitely need guys like that. Like,
absolutely,
I'll agree with that more than anybody else. So.
Yeah, Tim Kennedy was saying that he's like pushing for everybody to try to just go SF because the numbers are so short these days.
Oh yeah, no, Army Special Forces is short-staffed right now.
But I don't think they should. I don't think they should lower any standards, right? Like obviously they'll need more guys, right? But like, you still want to keep those guys really proficient at their job. So like, lowering things like PT scores or anything like that should definitely be off the table. You want your guys to be able to put out and rise to the call of duty and everything.
A good way to get those numbers up is another war. We need another war.
No, war's terrible, dude. Honestly, like as much as like. I don't know a whole lot about like how politics and all this works, but war in terms of like being I guess the only reason I really know anything about this is just some of the political classes I'm taking right now, but like war is a very bad thing for democracy to be involved in.
No, it's costly.
Yeah.
Nobody comes out. So yeah, no, totally. Like warfare is always a last ditch effort. It's always a last resort because even if you think you're going to get into a war, even if you win, you're still going to come out with losses. So,
cost the morale of the country. It's not going to be where it used to be.
Right.
But
so, yeah, that's an interesting topic for sure. American foreign policy is as complicated now as it has always been. So, yeah. But unfortunately, Skylar's battery life is not going to last long enough for us to get to that topic.
Yeah. Horrible producer over here. I'm sorry.
It's all good. We got plenty of time recorded. So, but yeah,
gonna have him on again.
Absolutely.
Dude, we'll be back.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
We'll be back with some whiskey.
Yeah, heard you turn that down.
I did?
Did you? Or did you just
No, we just ended up deciding against our better.
I thought you like asked Davis and he never drinks it. He's like, nah, I'd rather have a beer. I'll be like, dude, I got some really good rum,
I do
though.
prefer beer, but I will drink whiskey. That's fine.
We'll get that going. Maybe throw a few fights on too. Just have ourselves a night.
Yeah, me and Meade got to get up early. We got to go do fun Army stuff tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we gotta be there at 5:30 now.
Air quotes on the fun. So,
well, at least they bumped it back back this year. Last year we had to be there at 4 a.m.
God, yeah, it was what was it, 5 to 8?
Or 5 to 8. But if you were planning, you had to get there at 4. So it was from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. And if it was like far away, so like Lake McBride,
you gotta leave early.
You gotta leave at 3:30 in the morning.
Up at stupid hours.
So you're waking up maybe like 3:15.
Oh my word!
on a Thursday school day.
Dude,
ROTC, you gotta go to class.
ROTC takes it out of you, and especially for me, like the early mornings, I get tired sooner in the day, so I'll hit like 2-3 o'clock, and I'm like, fuck. Like,
it's like having a full-time job and going to school.
Yeah,
like
It's like it's
literally
not like
what I'm doing
my
right now.
my
Skylar's like, yeah, I already fucking do that.
my schedule is not particularly difficult, but it's like it's a lot harder to get yourself to do stuff on time and to do your to study and to do not just do your homework but to do it well when you're fighting fatigue. You know, nobody gets up at ridiculous hours every day.
Except for Jocko Willing.
Yeah, well,
Except for Pete Grabo.
yeah. Pete, oh my God.
Well, you know, oddly enough, it's interesting how, you know, my freshman and beginning of my sophomore year, I, you know, did not get nearly as good of grades as I do once I joined the ROTC program.
It can
And
definitely shape
once you're
guys
just
up.
more
Yeah.
busy and, you know, you get that discipline and everything, you start to get that work ethic.
Plus, your grades actually have a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
you're not just going for degree at that point.
Wasn't
You're like,
just
oh,
C's
this
get
might-
degrees.
Your
Now
GPA
it's like,
matters, like
fuck,
we talked about before.
I'm trying to get a good job I want in the Army.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, before we get into any new topics, I suppose we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks
Alright.
for coming on, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
much.
bro.
It's been good. And that's a wrap for our 6th episode. Skylar and I are hoping to pump out a few more episodes before the end of the semester, so stay tuned for more updates. If you like the show, you can really help support us by following our Instagram, liking our posts, and just telling your friends about us. As always, we love to hear feedback from fans, so don't be afraid to hit us up. If you'd like to be on the show or know someone you think would be great for us, please tell us. We're always looking for people to talk to. Anyway, as always, you can find Dan and Sam's Instagram handles in the description, and I really hope you enjoyed our talk. Have a good week, and go Gophers.